Welcome back to Voices of Impact, where we explore leadership beyond performance metrics and into identity, clarity, and sustainable authority. Today's conversation asks a powerful question. So what happens when logic no longer gives you a clear answer? In high-performance environments, we're taught to trust data, to optimize, to analyze harder, but what happens when you've run the numbers, built the models, mapped every scenario, and something still feels off? So I'm excited to welcome Adam Dickinson to the show. Adam is a logic to intuition integration advisor and future self strategist who works with high-functioning adults navigating moments when logic alone no longer provides clarity. With over 15 years in logic-driven environments, Adam brings a grounded, practical lens to intuition, not as mysticism, but as usable internal intelligence. So after reaching a personal inflection point where rational frameworks could no longer explain what he was experiencing internally, Adam began exploring how intuition functions as an internal data that can be interpreted, refined, and validated through logic. So that exploration led to his signature approach, logic to intuition integration, and a structured framework IntuLogic. So this conversation is deeply aligned with what I believe as well. We both believe in that high performers often over-index on analysis. Intuition can be structured and not sensationalized, and internal signals are intelligence, not interference. So in this episode, we'll explore what happens when you stop choosing between logic or intuition and began integrating both. So excited to have you on the show, Adam.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Vina. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Likewise, let's get into it. So I'm really stoked, honestly. So Adam, tell us about your journey from being an FBI intelligence analyst to the work you do now. What was the inner and outer story of that transition?
Yeah. Oh, how much time do you have, Vina? I could go a long time on that explanation, but my journey started really when I was in college and trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my career. And at the time, I was in a biology curriculum, wanted to be a doctor, but I also had this fascination with studying Mandarin Chinese, and it was just a fascinating puzzle for me. And one day, the FBI decided to come to my college campus, and I was like, oh, well, this is fascinating. This sounds neat. And I always wanted to work for the FBI in some capacity. And I just followed my intuition and decided to apply. It worked out. And then that really just sort of jump-started my honing of my intuitive gifts. About midway through my career with the FBI, I was in a very committed relationship, and personally, I had a separation with an individual that was super painful. It really, I kind of fought myself, to be honest, because I wanted to stay in that relationship. And because of that incident, logically, I didn't know how to cope. I essentially, well, did all the things like go outside or reach out to friends or, look at all the resiliency steps you could do. But for me, it just didn't work.
Yeah.
My body was saying one thing and my mind was saying another. And my mind was like, I still want to be with this person. And he does not. So unfortunately, that situation really caused me a lot of grief and pain. And so I started to go down this journey of observing my body, of meditating, and understanding how subtle energy shifts started to come forward. And it wasn't till right before COVID where I was really wanting to get clear on my purpose, which you said it beautifully in the intro, which is I show and teach others how to integrate logic and intuition for aligned decisions. And what that enables folks, the transformation there is giving people back agency and sovereignty over what's happening to the world, to themselves, when nothing really seems recognizable. And during that journey, I came across the Akashic Records, which I describe as your soul's energetic library of information from past, present, and future possibilities. And it really resonated with me because, one, it came across as, wow, this is this treasure map full of answers that you could ever want. Like, who doesn't want that? But because I was looking for answers, I was like, oh my God, I need help. And at the same time, I wanted a tool. And to me, I use the Akashic Records as a resource, as a tool to help guide me. And it really sparked my transformation into going inward and paying more attention to my gut and to the intuition that was guiding me. And come fast forward last year when everything was happening with the federal government, when the deferred resignation programs went out to the federal government, I had to pause and think through logically, okay, where am I at in my career? What do I want to do? And I was really having a hard time mentally moving forward because my body was telling me something, giving me signals like, okay, it's not really a good fit anymore, and I needed to figure out how to step into the next version of myself. So I went through a couple exercises, went into my own Akashic records, did some analytic exercises, and eventually decided to leave and start my own business where I'm now doing what I did to myself in a
Right.
way, but helping others navigate what's happening right now.
Wow. Wow, I love your story. It's just really inspiring. So from the FBI and then the relationship, first of all, thank you so much for sharing that. I know it's a lot, right? But then look at where you are right now. You're helping others and you're a role model for everyone else. And I can relate because currently I am going through a relationship where my logic kind of just overrides the intuition. But intuitively, I know that, should I stay? Should I not stay? So I'm kind of in a similar situation. So I know what that feels like. And a lot of people are probably listening to probably feels the same way.
Mm.
So I really appreciate that it's not just about career that we're talking about, it can also be a personal, right? It could be a personal relationship or a family or anything, right? This applies to all aspects of our life. So thank you so much for sharing that. Akashic records. This is something I'm new to. I'm pretty sure a lot of people are still like wondering, like, or curious to know more about that. So I love that you have reached your full potential and you're following your intuition right now and you're helping others. Appreciate for you for sharing that and inspiring others.
Yeah.
And how did you learn to hold both the rigorous analytical training and the more intuitive ways of knowing without feeling like you were betraying one for the other? So how were you able to balance both?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say when I was learning, well, it started with the meditation right after the breakup. And it began there because I focused more on my body, which is really key. Because to me, and what I advise my clients is your body essentially is like a tuning fork. And as you start to recognize and interpret these inner signals, you can become more aligned with and balance your intuition and logic. For me, once I started to observe my body and become more aware and conscious of the present moment, I then went into my practice with the Akashic Records and learned different techniques, different concepts and philosophies. And the key, I'll say, ingredients that helped me maintain integrity and balance between my logical side and my intuitive side was grace, giving myself a lot of self-love, to go through those uncomfortable changes, and also approaching this balancing of the two with a sense of neutrality and knowing that things can improve if you approach it with a sense of neutrality, because fear comes into play and that really causes things to go off balance and dysregulated. And so intuition and logic become very much off balance.
Right.
And so really approaching it with a sense of neutrality, a sense of grace, and self-love were sort of the tools that I used consistently.
Yeah.
Although it was difficult, let me tell you,
Yeah.
to do that. But that's how I help bring the two together.
Amazing. And absolutely, it's really about staying grounded and staying centered. And I love how you said self love because when logic overrides, you start into fear and overthinking mode. And then you realize, like, maybe something or that person or whatever that is in front of me is not so bad. So, looking at it, how do you feel in your body? Doing energy audits, I keep saying this. So whoever you're talking to or any conversation, feel it in your body. Like, does this feel aligned? What does that feel good in your heart? Does it feel heavy in your chest?
Mhm.
Or like, what does it truly feel like for you? Or do you feel energized, right? So we're having a conversation. I'm feeling energized, right? There was a conversation that I had before with a person. I had to, thinking about who was going to get on my podcast. And we just felt like immediately logic was overriding. Like, she's great on paper. It worked. But intuition, my gut was like, something's off. I just didn't feel like there was this like racing and it was not aligned and there was misunderstandings. And immediately I was like, it's okay, right? And like you said, going back to your centered, being grounded. And that's why meditation is so important, because sometimes you go like just kind of react, just kind of take a step back and look at it. And I love how you said that, right? And I think, like you said, it's so hard because as high achievers, we're just like in the go-getter, like logic. We're always in that, but just taking the time and really like prioritizing the space for yourself, like just being like, hey, let me close the door. Let me put on some healing music that will set you grounded. Visualization is something I did the other day. And I was like, oh, wow. Like, I channeled that, whatever I had, some anger or past grief, into something that was like, why do I feel this way? How can I channel it in a healthier way?
Yeah.
Right. So that's how you kind of heal, right? And you show up better. So these are some things that I love what you said is just neutral. And that's where it is. You don't have to be super like extremes, just kind of be with discerning. And that's something that I've been learning is, lead with discernment. Also, another thing is be open to things. Of course, you can be cautious, but be open yet discerning, because I know a lot of people are closed off, especially that logic and ego comes in like, oh my God, this is not going to work. I'm not going to go there next time. Right. And that's happened to me many times, but I was like, what am I getting from this? Though, what if that person is great? What if that situation or opportunity is actually better than I expected? What if it's aligned? So let me be open and then discerning from the get-go. Like, truly, like you said, going into the body is so important.
Yeah.
And I realized that has made life so much easier, right? You live with ease. You lead your business with ease. So I love how you talked about that. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
And going into more of the Akashic records. So, have you had skeptical clients who were surprised by the results of using the tools? And can you share an example?
Yeah, a ton. Let's see. I've had, quite a few clients. I think one individual that comes to mind was she had learned about the Akashic records through, I think, just conversations with me, and then searched it on Google and was just curious about it. We had a session because she was going through changes in her personal life and also her business. And she was looking essentially for a way to evolve her skills and her business acumen, and wanted to up-level her company while she was dealing with some competing priorities in her personal life, from being a mother to dealing with some other personal relationships. And so when we had our session, she immediately felt at ease, because when I am providing an Akashic record reading, it's very much conversational. The only difference is I'm present, but I am translating the energy that's in someone's records. And by translating, I provide imagery or metaphors. Like the other day, when I'm providing imagery and metaphors, I use reference points that I'm familiar with. So I was born in the 80s and through the 90s. So things like that have come through recently through recent readings are Care Bears was one metaphor that came through. What was it? Yesterday I did a reading. It was like Go Go Gadget, that cartoon. But I use a lot of essentially cartoons, imagery that I'm familiar with. And what that does is essentially provide context around the intuition so the client can better resonate and understand what's going on. Because with this particular individual that I was supporting, she was trying to understand what is the next version of her business and herself, with in a career sense and in a personal sense. And what the result was, she became more affirmed on her purpose and what the direction she was going, and what she needed to, if she desired it, to improve herself and improve her relationships, and what was holding her back and what she needed to let go of and basically shed. And she was kind of like super surprised. I'll say that. And she actually became a recurring client
Okay.
and has come back to me to better understand sort of the intuitive or energetic
Yeah.
feeling around a situation and how to navigate things when logically you see walls or roadblocks everywhere.
Yeah. Amazing. I love that. And I mean, it's so great to hear your client, even though she was surprised it worked, right? And I love that because I know, like, I was like super logical and I was like, okay, like, when I got into energetics, I was like, is this really real? You know,
Mm,
so, and I was also surprised when I got like intuitive readings from my coach and I was like, oh, wow. So I'm getting into energetics and it does definitely make a difference. So I
mhm.
love the work that you're doing. You're making a huge difference for everyone because especially in this day and age, you see on LinkedIn, everyone's about framework and logic, which is
Mm,
important. I'm not saying it isn't,
right.
but leading with that intuition, what does it feel? What does that mean? Right? Like, running your business with energy. For example, I just talked to someone who's a human design and she was like, Mina, are you a generator or projector?
Yeah.
And someone told me I was a projector and I needed a lot of rest. But I'm the kind of person who goes at 90 miles per hour, like
Mm,
always hustling. And I realized, why am I not getting the results I want? And I realized I needed to rest more. So I'm taking Mondays
mhm.
off. And it's just so much ease. I have that more presence, that more energy. I just show up more easily
Right.
compared to like 2 months ago, right? So you can even see results within like a week, honestly, right? So
Mhm.
it's that powerful. So I love the fact that we're talking about this and you're sharing this with us and using your gifts, which is so important. Amazing. Okay, so let me go into more of fear, identity, or inner barriers.
Mhm.
So, what are the most common scarcity or identity narratives you see in federal professionals or in general anyone, and how do you help them re-author those stories?
Ooh, yeah. I think the biggest one is financial
Yeah,
considerations. Even
that's a
with
huge
myself,
right.
everyone, finances are a big sticking point, very a big roadblock. And to me, one thing that I have been advising some folks are maintaining this stability around energy because to me money and finances are just a form of energy exchange.
Yeah,
So for example, I gave one akashic record reading to a client and she had a challenge with finances because she is also going through a transformation herself. And
right.
what basically came through during that reading is she was grasping for money and
Yeah,
grasping for that paycheck or that high salary. And she was doing a great service to herself by just being present with where she was at and letting the money be drawn to her and sitting in that vibration that is resonating where money will come in the right time and divine timing, essentially. And it was a complete unlock for her and myself.
right.
Often, I don't know if it's communicated, but often when you go to a Akashic record reader, the messages that come through not only are a message for the client, but also for the reader.
Yes.
So, but all that I bring that up because right now I would just suggest to reframe the perspective around money and how that might affect the next steps that you take in any sort of federal transition or pivot, to embody more presence, more resonance of who your value and what you bring forward with your gifts and purpose. And then with the problem that I'm seeing most is around stability and money. If you can step into that energy essentially and resonate that out, things will come to you naturally and at the right time.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a huge thing for me, especially because I've been through a lot of this and I had to unlearn unconditioning. So I love how you said this, right? Because money, I thought I had to work hard for it. That's how I was learned from family, right? So I had to really work super hard and, chase after clients. Like I was over giving, over performing. A lot of us do, especially with corporates. Like I had a client she's like, I just want that compensation. Let's go.
Right.
And she was so focused on that, which I was like, it's great that you feel like you really deserve that. Of course you deserve that. But then I was like, you kind of know your value. She was like, okay, well, how do I just ask? So she just went directly and asked for it. And I was like, first, let's just kind of take a step back and come from the abundance mindset. Really put
Mhm.
yourself out there, show up as you, your gifts. As a career coach, now that comes up a lot. And even now as entrepreneurs, immediately we're just like, I want those 10K months. I want that revenue, right? So how do I
Mhm.
get there so quickly? And it's not just about, getting there quick. It's like you said, really understanding. And I had to unlearn this a lot myself. And I'm so glad you brought this up because it's really like you can get paid to exist, right? And not literally, but like people were like, Mina, you just have to show up as yourself. And I'm like,
Mhm.
is that true? Like it was so different for me
Mhm.
because for someone who's go-getter and high achieving, and then I was like, that is true, right? So I was just like, let me try this. Let me reframe that thought from scarcity to abundance.
Mhm.
And let me put my gifts out there and it's just like coming in, right? The opportunities are just coming in. And I loved how you said timing wise because we tend to, we were talking about this last, conversation
Mhm.
about letting go of control and surrendering. And you do have to be visible. So this kind of is a visibility thing as entrepreneurs or any professional, even if you're in corporate, like really putting yourself out there on LinkedIn or thought leadership, but you don't have to you could, like you said, grasp, like let it go and be like, hey, it will come on its timing. It might not be like next week or next month or 5 months. It could take some time,
Mhm.
but enjoy the process, right? And that is very difficult. And that comes under logic and intuition.
Mhm.
So logic, we're like grasping, like, oh, we need that money to pay off bills and stability. One thing that I'm doing that I would like to show you, if it is a stability issue, enjoy and serve your purpose. Listen to your intuition. If it is a money thing, say you want have a part time or do like a little bit of freelancing.
Mhm.
So combine it with that if it is a stability thing, but don't grasp onto it like I need the money. Like you want money, it's literally part of your legacy of generational wealth, right? Reframing it that way, it's not money like short term, but if you're a soulpreneur, if you're a purpose driven, we're not going to be like others, right? There are going to be people who are corporate vibes, not purpose driven, going to be chasing after money. And there are going to be people like us who, if we are soulpreneurs, our thing is different, right? Our journey is different and it might
Mhm.
take a long time and that's fine, but it's worth it at the end. But having these limiting beliefs come in is not helpful, right? So
Right.
having that mindset reframe. And a lot of people say it's really coming from family and conditioning. So this is why I love how you talked about this, which is very important that you help others because this is a huge thing that keeps coming up. Same thing for me, right?
Yeah.
So I invested like 6K into my mentor and I was like 6K, like my parents would freak out. I was freaking out. My nervous system was like berserk and I was like $6,000, like, oh shit, and but then once I did it, I was like, I felt really good, right? I
Mhm.
was like, is this an investment in my becoming? It's an investment in my next version.
Right.
If my next version, how would I act and feel? That's how
Mhm.
you manifest things. That's how you actually get things into reality. I followed my intuition. I was like, logically, it doesn't make sense, obviously. I'm going crazy. But intuitively, I was like, this is the right. I feel like I deserve it. And I'm in a good place now and I feel happy. And that's what matters, right? So these kind of things are super important.
Yeah.
So I love how you talked about that. So a lot of people who are listening, please do invest in yourself. Money is energy. So the more you invest in yourself, you show up, your energy and your light is impacting others. You will get in return and it's timing, right? Its own timing. Absolutely. Okay, let me go into, okay, this is a good question. So how do you help clients differentiate fear-driven caution from fear that is preventing nest evolution?
Yeah. Well, a couple of ways. One, I'd say the biggest way is through just providing guidance through an Akashic record reading. Often when I have clients, they come to me where typically some of their questions are very fear centric or fear based. And so when I'm working with individuals, I often suggest or ask them to come to flip the question to have it more positive or high vibration could be a different descriptor. But ultimately, the goal behind the question is around fear. And so one way that I support individuals with transmuting that, transforming that fear, is providing guidance through the Akashic records. Another way is when we're working together, I often encourage folks to question, interpret their inner intelligence. And so as we talked about earlier, in a neutral state, is this feeling, this sensation, is it heavy? Is it constricting? Is causing some kind of resistance? And if it is, be curious about it and start to question it more. And through that sort of giving space to pause and then discern the feeling and sensation that you're getting, you can be more capable to reorient and reframe the fear in a more productive manner. But essentially giving space for an individual to start to become more of their aware of their intuitive side. And then once that happens, integrate it with logic and various techniques so they can start to feel good about themselves, but also know and know the direction that they're going, and it makes sense logically.
Yeah, absolutely. I love how you said self-awareness, right? And just being self-aware of what's just going on, like sensations in the body. Because sometimes, yeah, like I said, it's logic just takes over all the time. But
Mhm.
I think having a consistent practice, and that's super important, because one time you're like, I feel good, and then the logic comes in. But like you said, doing it consistently every
Mhm.
single week and having a practice, like even if it's like a meditation or 5-minute visualization, it really is helping. Or if you don't want to do it by yourself, like I just joined some groups yesterday, right? And there are so many groups out there, whether it's a women group or even a men's group. Like I just joined a lot of them, and having a weekly, like you're just kind of, sometimes you do, I wouldn't say force yourself, but sometimes you kind of have to put it on the calendar and just
Mhm.
go in and see if it worked for you. And then you'll realize, like, I want to do it again this week. And the more you have that consistent rhythm, you'll realize like intuition automatically overrides the logic. Like that's what I used to. I was very logical, masculine energy. But once I got into this, I'm like, okay, you know what? I put a calendar on myself to go to this and do meditation every like for 5 minutes. Every single weekend I do this, or just like step back. It's like a very natural thing. My brain's used to it. And now I just go in. I'm just like, do I feel it or do I not? I don't have to like overthink it.
Right.
Right. And when you're feeling into it, it's just easier. And I'm like, yes or no. No, it didn't work. Like resistance. Let's go to the next one. And the more you say no, the one that's more aligned comes in quickly. I did notice that, right? So these are kind of a very good decision-making process, right? So,
Yeah.
but like we're not saying have logic like at all. We're just saying like lead with the intuition. The logic kind of falls into place, right?
Yeah.
But lead with it. So, and I love how you're doing the Akashic records. That helps them, guides them into that, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've done intuitive business readings for like, I've gotten it from other people, and it's been a game changer for me. So I definitely recommend who's ever listening to get Akashic record reading from Adam. So this is great. And also looking into advice. So for someone in a structured system who wants to test leaving but fears consequences, so if they want to leave like a job or relationship, what are some realistic first steps that they can take? So I know one's the intuition, but what
Yeah.
are steps they can take?
That would be a good first step, but I think with the intuition, it's also identifying your intentions. Often, when
Right.
I'm also working with clients on the logical side, we will go through certain exercises to identify your assumptions and really getting to the root of why you want to do something and how it will best serve you. So I think clarifying your intentions and making sure that's clear, because any sort of energy you bring to your intentions will just magnify. And so I would say that would be a good first step. Once you do, you clarify your intentions. Then, as you pointed out, I often advise folks to use your gut to get the big picture, your intuition to set the scoping of the problem set. And then once you do that, which I guess could be step number 2, step number 3 would then be looking at all the different pieces logically and figuring out what is available to you in the near term, to you in the long term, and making sure you have a certain path to get to where you want to go. And also keeping in mind what your red lines are, like what's a non-negotiable in terms of like your energy or your resources or your identity, making sure that's intact as you move through this bridge to transformation, if you will, through change. And because for me, safety is a
Right.
big sticking point, you could say. I often make decisions that are highly emphasized around safety for myself. So keeping in mind what's a non-negotiable is also very important, so you don't exacerbate your nervous system, if you will.
Exactly.
So that's what I would start with, clarifying the intention, then using your gut to set the bigger picture. And then third step is looking at things analytically, logically, and then the last consideration is your non-negotiables, because needs to be you need to maintain your inner infrastructure, if you will, as you move through that transformation.
Amazing. I love this. I love how you structured it really well. And especially the non-negotiables. Very, very important if you have the capacity. Because there's one thing to want something, but are you ready for it? Do you have the capacity? And I'm still doing that now. Setting boundaries is one thing. So I had to say no to my partner for something, right? I was like, I don't have the energy for this. The right people will respect it. The wrong ones won't, right? You know what's truly aligned for you. Right? Stand up to your standards and your boundaries. That's very important. Yes. And I love how you talked about capacity. And this is something it came up from my clients when I was a career coach, right? And it's also, I have it because it's perfectionism. So what would you tell someone who believes like they must have complete clarity before making any move?
I would say to give yourself grace and pause and see if there's a way to trust yourself more. Because more clarity doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to continue trusting yourself through that clarity. And for me, and what I advise my clients is there is a deeper knowing through trust, not necessarily through clarity. And clarity, I think, is a good first step. But when you begin to trust yourself as you move forward from that clarity, then there's an unlock and a sense of ease, and where the process is more enjoyable. But until that trust with yourself and your self leadership and self love are built in, the continuation of seeking more clarity will just compound what you're trying to solve. It will just continue the problem. But until you go deeper and integrate this sense of inner trust and in your decision, any sort of clarity will become not really as important. It's more about moving into a phase of self-trust and self-leadership.
Yeah. Wow, this is really key. And a lot of people don't understand the clarity and self-trust. And it took me a while to get to that part, right? I'm still in it, right? So I feel like some people are like, okay, I got the clarity, let's go to the next step. But I love how you talked about like trusting yourself and where you are. And it's okay to go slowly if you're not at that season, if you're not there yet. It's not about being there. As mentioned, we come from that aspect of, like I said, letting go and surrendering, but taking that first step and just enjoying the process. Like, also let it, right? And if you're not at that phase of self-trust, it's fine, right? So like you said, make sure you kind of trust yourself, you have the capacity, and then you go from there, right? So I love how you said that. That's amazing. And that's how like a lot of people who struggle with perfectionism, including me, right? So I just have to take a step back, and then I'm like, okay, do I have that self-love? And practicing self-love, self-care, all of this is so important, especially in your career, because we always have I have clients who are like, I don't have time for this, but we have to see how important it is to you. It's not about having time. Are you willing to make time, right? That's how you become into a better version of yourself. So amazing. And this was a great conversation, Adam. So what's next for you? New programs, initiatives?
Yeah, I'm doing, just to give a shout out, I am doing a finishing up a 4-part series on my IntuLogic process with the organization called WellFed. We have 2 sessions left where we're talking about the align session. So learning how to align your inner signals with logic, and then the last step is taking action. So definitely want to give that a shout out. Also be on the lookout for a new resource around the Akashic Records. I get a lot of questions on
Wow.
that, and I think it's just time to help explain what it is and the benefits and how it's relatable. So otherwise, you can find me on LinkedIn if you're in the middle of a career transition or personal shift and want more clarity on your next steps. Feel free to connect with me there. I share weekly insights on my logic to intuition integration and practical ways to understand your inner intelligence during a reinvention. So, yeah.
Amazing. I love this. So excited for you. And please, everyone who's listening, to follow Adam. Like, I follow his content. It's amazing. And I've learned so much from him. I'm sure you will too. So if you'll, make sure you connect with him on LinkedIn and yeah, work with him. So thank you so much. And let's go into the rapid fire round. So brain meets gut edition. Sorry, logic and intuition. So let me see. Okay. If intuition had a sound, what would it be?
Oh my God, that's a great question. Silence, there wouldn't be one.
Yes, I do agree. It's that silence. It's that peace.
Yeah.
Silent, peaceful
Uh-huh.
sound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stillness. Uh-huh.
Amazing. A movie character who overthinks everything.
Ooh, I'm sure there's a movie character that overthinks everything. I'd say any character that has worry and fear written all over their face. And I'm drawing a blank. Help me out, Dina. I don't know. I could describe the person.
See, I like those Disney movies.
Yeah, fear. I don't know. Like Pinocchio, or like there's always some kind of ebb and flow with Disney
Right.
movies. So yeah, I'd go with any of those. Yeah. Sorry.
Or it could just be like, I don't know. It doesn't have to be a movie. I don't know, Tom and Jerry. I don't know.
Oh,
Sometimes like
yeah.
Tom just overthinks things.
Yeah, no, so
Yeah, and
true.
Jerry's like, okay, let's just do it. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, I think that's actually interesting when I think about. That's pretty cool. Okay. And what's one decision you made that made zero logical sense at the time, but turned out right?
I would say learning about the Akashic Records. Yeah, logically, it was like, well, this sounds like a lot of bull. When I first learned about it, to be real honest with you, I'm like,
Yeah,
who would spend their time with this? But as an analyst, I was trained to
right.
question your assumptions. I'm like, well, there's an entire industry getting paid for this.
Yeah,
There
I
must
know.
be something legitimate and credible. But yeah, I would say going down the Akashic Record route.
Amazing. I
Mhm.
love that. Yeah. And yeah, I'm also like an analyst as well. So I would analyze certain things like the intuitive readings that people gave me or tarot. And I'm like, people get like paid for this. Like I had the same thing. And I was like, and I actually got a reading. I was like, oh my God, this turned out true. And this is amazing. Like I just
Mhm.
love those people, tarot readers. Like it's amazing. And I love the work they're doing. It's so powerful.
Yeah.
So absolutely. And yeah, when you look at it from that lens of logic, some things just doesn't make sense. And even the relationship I have with my partner, like we are soulmates in sense, and people just are like, "What do you see in this person?" And I'm like, "No, it's different. It's a soul thing, right?"
Yeah.
And but like, do what works for you, right? If your intuition is saying this, then yeah, go for it. So I love that. And finish the sentence: when I'm fully aligned,
I'm excited.
yes, excited and at peace, right?
Mhm.
There's that inner calm
Yeah.
that, because I used to think like, as I'm a fire sign, I'm go-getter, excitement's my thing.
Mhm.
So I never really, I think believed in like calm and peacefulness. And now that's where I'm at. But you can have both, right? We always think it's either or, but you can have
Mhm.
both, right? And that's when you know you're really aligned at that time, right? So you're going in the right direction. So
Mhm.
love this. Thank you so much. What today's conversation makes it clear is that logic is powerful, but logic alone is incomplete, right? When you integrate analysis with internal intelligence, decision making feels heavy. Like we talked about, it really feels calm and peaceful. It becomes grounded and it becomes sustainable, right? So if you're building a sustainable career or a business or a relationship, it could be anything. It's very long lasting. So misalignment isn't confusion, it's really an integrated data. So when you begin treating your internal signals as intelligence, not interference, you unlock a different level of leadership. Right? One that isn't reactive, one that isn't performative, and one that doesn't require overthinking every move. So if this conversation resonated, if you've been standing at crossroads where logic isn't giving you the full answer, consider this your permission to expand how you define intelligence. I prepare to launch Sovereign Rise, a global collective for solo leaders building from identity, integrity, and impact. I'm calling in those who know leadership requires both clarity and depth. So if you feel called to be either a community builder, a founding sister or brother, a strategic partner, speaker, or just any contributor to the movement, book a coffee collab chat with me, link in the show notes. So this isn't about choosing logic or intuition, but it's about integration, right? So thank you, Adam, for this very interesting conversation and for the work you do. It's so inspiring. And for your presence. And until next time, think clearly, lead intentionally, and trust the intelligence within you.
Thank you, Lena.